Alright guys, some explanations of some of the calls today from the chat room. DHI wasn't a call, but it had my attention because this was what it looked like yesterday, and then they came out with earnings. So home builders had kind of ugly numbers, or I guess it was new home sales had ugly numbers yesterday. You see the volume, and a lot of the home builders pushed down. Well, then lo and behold, DHI comes out with earnings today and gaps up. So you got a pro gap there. You got some potential shorts in trouble, and you get that surprise gap up. Now I was watching this one for a long. I mentioned it 5 minutes in, said, hey, this has got great strength. Could be a buy right here with a low of day stop, which would have worked, but the SPY gapped up and was just selling all, the first 30, 40 minutes, crazy weak at the open. And so then DHI starts flagging, and I said, well, I like this flag for a potential long again, but not against the SPY, and that would have worked too. Okay, but I never even took a trade in DHI. But we did make money in the home builders, and I'll show you how in a minute. But look at the SPY after the gap up, starts to sell, then you think, okay, and now the gap's filled. Look at the size of that 5-minute candle compared to the first two. It's got to be done. Nope, still going. And then you think, wow, okay, we're finally bouncing. Nope, lows of the day again. So at some point this morning, even with the gap up, started to feel like the market had double topped. And it was it, and it ended up coming up, almost taking out the high of the day, only to close in about the middle of its range. So it was a pretty crazy day. Having said all that, let me show you how I called and made money off home builders here. Toll Brothers. This one gave a really nice setup. So you had an early spike, kind of along, a sympathy play off of DHI, I guess. Takes out the low of the day when the market was selling, then comes up, almost gets back to the high, and then this pullback right here to the blue line. I called this on a 5-minute buy setup because this blue line here is the 8-period moving average on 5-minute candles. On a strong stock, I love pullbacks to this area. We did it in SPWR yesterday as well and caught the low of the pullback. So actually called Toll long at 34.02 right there on that green candle with a stop below that green candle, only 9 cents below, and look at that. And actually the last sell that I took and suggested to the room was right at 35. I said, you've got shape up into resistance, hole number 35 plus some resistance on the chart, and that was, you kind of had a double top there, but that was the high of the day. That's when I took the rest off the table and suggested to people that's a great time to sell as well. So big move in Toll. Skechers was another one that we already had on watch. All right, we had Skechers on watch because if you watched the watch list video last night, I said a lot of times when you get a gap up like this and it sells off all day, the next day you get a nice bounce. Now on an intraday basis, how did I call it? I'm showing you 2-minute candles here. Here is the opening. That's supposed to be an arrow. Let's try that again. Here is the opening 2-minute candle, that red one right there. It sold off with the market. Then it comes out and puts in, takes out the high of the day and then puts in this really tight base. So it wasn't that tricky of a call. Skechers had nice relative strength in a weak market. I was kind of expecting a bounce today. And then you've got this little flag pattern right there at the high of the day. I just called it over that base with a stop below that base. Nothing tricky. 38.89, and the stop was only 17 cents below. And there's the trigger. Off to the races. It ended up making it to 40.20, so moved up $1.31 in our favor on only 17 cents risk. Also called General Motors as a bottoming play right down here. GM. It was getting that shape and volume we look for, and actually called this using 1-minute candles. Try to zoom in for you. Because you had that shape and volume, it was like the third push down of the day, felt like capitulation, and called it long over this candle, 33.65 with a 33.51 stop, and I'll just switch to 5-minute candles. Now that was the low of the day, ended up closing at the highs of the bounce, not the highs of the day, but the highs of the bounce. Went to 34.22. So 57-cent move in our favor on 14 cents risk. Never underwater once that triggered. And a nice short setup in THC. Now, why was this interesting as a short? Couple reasons. You had shape. Okay, first you had a nice spike. Then you come up and you take out the high of day to the upside here. But if you're just looking at that, I don't know that that's a short, right? But it had already run for 15 minutes straight. People buying a high of day break on almost any stock that looks like this, getting into the high, that's already usually a decent short for a pullback anyway. How many times have you bought a high of day break after a stock moved up 15 minutes only to watch it reverse on you and you think, what have I done, right? But couple it with the fact that, look at the daily. This was up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days in a row and finally hitting the 200 day. Plus you're getting intraday shape. Plus you're extended in the short term and you're catching people buying that high of day break. And look at the reversal now. I actually called this long while this red candle was forming at 42.80 with a high of day stop. And it went all the way down, took out the low of the day over the next 30 minutes. So it worked out perfectly. That's a great setup to learn if you're looking for shorts. If you can find something that's 3-4 days up in a row and then stretching on an intraday basis to hit the 200 day, that's a really nice short setup. So that's the reasoning behind the calls from today. Had a pretty nice day in the chat room. I'm trying to see. There were a couple other things that were just minor. Made a little money in ISR, a little bit of money in CDTI, but they're not worth going over because they don't really give detailed explanations, chart explanations of why the calls were made. So these other ones hopefully are a little more educational. I'm going to quit babbling and we'll see you guys tomorrow.